Michael Shellenberger recently appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast and challenged the unofficial story that Epstein took himself out. And it got me to question my own views, which is one of my favorite things. In response to Shellenberger's heresy, Rogan pushed back hard by really hammering home the point that Epstein had been housed with a contract killer, Nicholas Tartaglione.
Did you know that? Do you know his roommate was a cop that had killed 4 people in contract killings?
That Tartaglione was a contract killer seems to be a sticking point for Rogan. And if you don't believe me, check this out. Just don't make a drinking game out of it or you're definitely going to need your stomach pumped.
Contract killings? 4 people in contract killings. Contract killer?
Well, no,
his cellmate is a contract killer. Roommate who's a fucking contract killer. Because you want to kill him because people are going to give you like extra cigarettes at the commissary or
Do we
something.
have
This guy who's a contract killer, cell with a contract killer in a cell with a cop who's a contract killer.
I mean, this feeds the larger narrative that Epstein was taken out by someone else. And to Rogan's point, who better to do it than a contract killer? Was it normal for someone like Tartaglione to bunk with someone like Epstein? Or was he placed in that cell simply to take Epstein out? We're going to get into all of it. But first, if you're into this kind of content, please give this video a like and a share, leave me a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Let me begin by saying that, like most of you, I don't believe that Epstein took his own life. But this isn't that story. Indeed, I mean, that story's been told countless times. Instead, this is the story of Nicholas Tartaglione, a man who sits right at the edge of one of the most controversial deaths in modern history. A man that some people believe, like Joe Rogan, was secretly working for the government to take out Epstein. Let's slow down and trace exactly how these 2 men ended up in a cell together. Was it really such an odd pairing as Rogan maintains? Here's how it happened. Rogan is correct that Tartaglione used to be a police officer. But at some point he flipped, and by 2016, he was at the center of a quadruple homicide. The case begins, like many do, with money. Some man named Martin Luna owed Tartaglione an unknown amount of cash for some kind of drug activity. Tartaglione arranged a meeting, only this wasn't a negotiation. Instead, Luna was kidnapped, tied up, abused, and eventually strangled with a zip tie. But it didn't stop there. 3 men believed to be witnesses were also eliminated. All 4 bodies were found on Tartaglione's property. Now, what might stand out for some people is not just the brutality of Tartaglione's actions, but rather his willingness to eliminate multiple people to contain a situation. And it's here where you can start to understand why someone like Joe Rogan would refer to him as a contract killer. But here's the punchline. Tartaglione was not a contract killer, any more than he was a bank robber. Tartaglione was eventually arrested and housed at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, where housing is determined by a mix of classification, bed space, security needs, separation flags, medical or health needs, and plain old correctional officer judgment. Rogan's confusion occurs because he's framing Tartaglione as a contract killer, which he absolutely was not, instead of an ex-cop, which he absolutely was, and that distinction makes a big difference when it comes to being housed in a jail. Because Tartaglione was an ex-cop, he couldn't be put in general population for his own safety. I would argue this is also done for the CO's safety because somebody like Tartaglione is bound to upset some people that are also being housed in the same facility. People like Tartaglione often have a price on their head, and it's just easier to avoid all that dry cleaning and paperwork by keeping them separated. Which brings us to 2019 and Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein was no ordinary prisoner. Crimes aside, deplorable as they were, his notoriety alone warranted placement in a special housing unit. If 2 inmates are considered bad candidates for general population, like Tartaglione and Epstein, staff may decide that they are safer together than in general population. So it isn't weird that Epstein couldn't be housed alone because he would end up bunking together. In fact, it makes a certain kind of sense when we consider Epstein's suicide watch. As an ex-cop, Tartaglione would have been familiar with at least basic resuscitation techniques. Maybe that factored into the decision. I understand that it's very difficult to consider that because of the whole way this thing has been framed. But we have to be willing to challenge our own narratives if we desire the truth. Then on July 23rd, 2019, something odd happened.
Night, Jeffrey Epstein claimed his cellmate tried to kill him. New documents revealed Jeffrey Epstein claimed his cellmate tried to kill him in an incident before his death.
Epstein was found in his cell with injuries around his neck. Now, Rogan is correct here that at first Epstein said that Tartaglione attacked him. But that's not the full story. The full story is that Epstein said Tartaglione attacked him, then he said he couldn't recall what happened, then requested to be placed back in the same cell with him. Nonetheless, Tartaglione was taken out and a new unnamed cellmate was brought in. Look, maybe that happened, maybe it didn't happen. If there's one thing I absolutely agree with Joe Rogan about, is that there are a lot of weird little mishaps that surround this case. However, I do disagree with him here.
But if he said this guy tried to kill him 18 days before, why didn't you take that into consideration?
The reason we don't have to take it into consideration is because Epstein retracted it. So there's nothing to do with it anymore until somebody finds something concrete to challenge it. Until then, all we have is Tartaglione's testimony.
Jeffrey Epstein tried killing himself when he was in the cell with me. I woke up, I brought him back with CPR. To prove this point, Jeffrey Epstein wrote a suicide note. Judge Karras, the presiding judge over my case, ordered my friend and attorney John Weider to bring in the suicide note that Jeffrey Epstein wrote and give it to the court.
Whether we believe him or not is up to each one of us to decide for ourselves. But the agony of seeking truth. No prejudgments allowed at all. Damn it. On August 9th, that new cellmate was also transferred out, and I don't know why, but I'm sure Internal Affairs at MCC does. There are many nuances that go into these decisions, and moving prisoners around is standard procedure. Or somebody was just trying to get Epstein alone to eliminate him. Either way, it would seem that Tartaglione had nothing to do with Epstein's demise. And so we have to hold two truths in our head at the same time. Truth number one, I don't believe Epstein took himself out. Truth number two, I don't believe Tartaglione tried to take Epstein out either. There's a tendency, especially online, to turn figures like Tartaglione into something almost mythic, to elevate him from a criminal to an archetype, from an individual to a symbol of the larger shadow government. You know, the hitman, the fixer, the muscle, the kind of guy Hillary Clinton puts in a jail cell.
I'm Winston Wolfe. I solve problems.
That's exactly what Rogan tried to do with Tartaglione, and in the very least, that's what Shellenberger was trying not to do with him. And perhaps that's the better approach, because at least in this case, every point Rogan made crumbled under scrutiny. So why do I feel like this highly specific point about Tartaglione matters? Well, it's because I believe the truth about what happened to Epstein is going to come to us in inches like this. We all want some big reveal because that's what Scooby-Doo conditioned us to expect. But the truth is going to come by critically analyzing every aspect of this case and carefully separating what is plausible from what we are filling in with our own unsubstantiated ideas masquerading as facts. It happens to all of us sometimes, so all I'm really saying is be aware of it and try to be careful. You free your mind by using your brain. Peace! In fact, Epstein couldn't be housed alone because he was, how do you even say, on a live watch? That's so gay that they make you say it like that.